Document. Part 4 of the story. The days turned into a week, and the Valeth ships remained suspended in the sky like silent sentinels. Their presence had become both a constant reminder of humanity's vulnerability and a source of endless speculation. People around the world continued to adapt, finding ways to live their lives despite the uncertainty. In Chicago, Emily Carter worked tirelessly on her documentary, piecing together footage that showcased humanity's resilience. She believed that if she could capture enough moments of hope and unity, it might change how the visitors saw them. 1. Morning, Emily decided to visit a community garden located in a modest neighborhood. The garden was a vibrant patch of green amidst the concrete sprawl, tended by volunteers who grew vegetables and flowers for those in need. As she approached, she noticed Rachel Brooks there, helping a group of children plant seeds in small pots. The kids giggled as they patted soil over the tiny seeds, their faces lit with excitement. Emily greeted Rachel warmly and asked if she could film the scene. "Of course," Rachel replied, brushing dirt off her hands. "It's important to show that life goes on even now." As Emily filmed, she couldn't help but notice the bond between Rachel and the children. They listened intently as she explained how plants grow, their eyes wide with curiosity. One boy, no older than 7, proudly held up his pot. "This is going to be a big flower," he declared. "It sure is," Rachel said with a smile. "And when it blooms, it'll remind us that good things can happen, even in tough times." Her words resonated deeply with Emily. She zoomed in on the boy's face, capturing the innocence and optimism that seemed so natural to him. It was moments like these, simple yet profound, that gave her faith in humanity's ability to endure. Later that day, Emily met up with John Miller at a local shelter where firefighters were distributing supplies to displaced families. Shelter buzzed with activity, volunteers moving quickly to organize food, blankets, and clothing. John stood near the entrance, greeting newcomers with a reassuring smile. "How's it going?" Emily asked as she set up her camera. John shrugged. "Could be worse. We've got enough hands to keep things running smoothly, and people are stepping up to help. That's what matters." Emily nodded, filming as John interacted with a young mother holding a baby. He handed her a warm blanket and offered words of encouragement. "You're stronger than you think," he told her gently. "We'll get through this together." The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled gratefully. Emily captured the exchange, feeling a lump form in her throat. These small acts of kindness were powerful reminders of humanity's capacity for compassion. Back aboard the Valeth mothership, Cale reviewed Emily's latest footage, his fascination growing with each passing moment. The scenes from the community garden and the shelter reinforced his belief that humanity possessed qualities the Valeth had long overlooked. Their emotions weren't weaknesses, they were strengths, driving them to care for one another and persevere in the face of adversity, determined to share his findings. Cale requested an audience with Commander Vorthon. When he entered the command chamber, Vorthon was seated at a large console, analyzing data streams from Earth. Without looking up, he asked, "What is it now?" "I've gathered more evidence," Cale began, projecting Emily's footage onto the wall. "These humans, they're not just surviving, they're thriving. Look at this." The screen displayed Rachel teaching the children about gardening, followed by John comforting the young mother at the shelter. Cale pointed out the expressions of joy, determination, and empathy in each frame. Their emotional intelligence allows them to connect, to support one another. Isn't that valuable? Vorthon studied the images briefly before shaking his head. Connection leads to dependence. Dependence creates vulnerability. Vulnerability is weakness, but isn't connection also a form of strength? Cale argued. They work together, solve problems collectively, and find meaning in shared experiences. Shouldn't we consider what they might teach us? Vorthon's gaze hardened. Teach us, a primitive species? You overestimate them, Cale. Their emotions make them unpredictable, irrational. Predictability is strength. Strength ensures survival. Cale clenched his jaw, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He knew challenging Vorthon directly would only deepen the divide between them, but he couldn't let the matter rest. "If we dismiss them outright," he said carefully, "we risk missing an opportunity to learn something valuable. Perhaps our own survival depends on understanding theirs. For a brief moment, doubt flickered across his face, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Your theories are intriguing, he conceded, but irrelevant. Our mission is clear. We'll proceed as planned. Disappointed but undeterred, Cale returned to his quarters. He replayed Emily's footage once more, searching for answers. What made these humans so different? Why did their actions stir something within him, a longing to understand, to connect? He realized then that his perspective was shifting. The longer he observed humanity, the more he questioned the rigid beliefs drilled into him since birth. Meanwhile, on Earth, Emily continued her work, driven by a growing sense of purpose. She spent the evening editing her recordings, weaving together stories of resilience and hope. Each clip reinforced her belief that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its technology or power, but in its heart. As she worked, she thought about the Valith watching from above. Did they see what she saw? Or were they blinded by their own assumptions? The next morning, Emily received a message from Mike Dawson, the tech-savvy engineer she'd met earlier. I've been monitoring their signals, he explained over the phone. There's a pattern to their transmissions. It's almost like they're scanning Earth for information. Do you think they're learning about us? Emily asked. Maybe, Mike replied. I'm not sure they're seeing the whole picture. If we want them to understand us, we need to show them who we really are, Emily agreed. She decided to take her documentary project to the next level, reaching out to communities across the country. She posted online, inviting people to share their stories of courage, creativity, and kindness during the Valith's arrival. Within hours, responses poured in: photos, videos, written accounts from individuals eager to contribute. Among them was Harold Jenkins, the elderly man she'd interviewed in the park. He sent her a video of himself playing chess with a neighbor, their laughter echoing in the background. Even in uncertain times, Harold said, we find ways to enjoy life. That's what makes us human. Another submission came from a teenager named Lily, who had organized a virtual art exhibit featuring pieces inspired by the Valith's arrival. Art helps us process what we're feeling, Lily explained. We're still here, and we're not afraid. Emily compiled the submissions into a montage, adding voiceovers and music to create a cohesive narrative. The result was breathtaking, a tapestry of human experiences woven together by threads of hope and determination. She titled it, We Are More Than You See, and uploaded it to her website, sharing the link widely on social media. Within days, the documentary went viral. Millions of people watched, sharing it with friends and family. Comments flooded in, praising Emily's work and expressing gratitude for the reminder of humanity's strength. Even news outlets picked up the story, highlighting the project as a symbol of unity in uncertain times. Unbeknownst to Emily, Cale intercepted the documentary shortly after its release. He watched it in awe, moved by the raw honesty and emotion it conveyed. Scenes of children planting flowers, firefighters comforting, strangers and artists creating beauty out of chaos spoke directly to his growing doubts about the Valith's mission. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a different outcome, one where understanding replaced judgment, connection bridged the gap between worlds. That night, Cale returned to the observation deck, gazing down at the planet below. Lights twinkled across continents, illuminating cities, towns, and villages. Despite the challenges facing humanity, they carried on, driven by a spirit that defied logic and reason. Cale realized then that perhaps the true test wasn't whether humanity could survive. The Valith's arrival was whether the Valith could rise to meet humanity's example, somewhere between Earth and the stars. A shift was beginning, though. The path ahead remained uncertain. One thing was clear: the story of humanity was far from over. And for the first time, someone among the Valith was listening, not just with ears, but with an open mind and perhaps a changed heart. Document. Part 1 of the story. The stars above Earth glittered like tiny diamonds scattered across an endless black canvas. It was a calm night in Chicago, and Emily Carter sat on the rooftop of her apartment building with her camera resting on her lap. She loved this time of year, the air crisp, the city lights glowing softly below. and the hum of life continuing uninterrupted beneath her feet. But tonight felt different. There was something strange about the way the sky seemed heavier. As if it were holding its breath, Emily adjusted her lens, pointing it toward the heavens. She had always been fascinated by space, though she wasn't an astronomer or a scientist. Her passion lay in storytelling, capturing moments that revealed the beauty and complexity of human existence. Tonight, however, the story seemed to be coming from somewhere far beyond Earth's atmosphere, far away. High above the planet, a fleet of massive ships emerged silently from the void of space. They were sleek and metallic, their surfaces reflecting light in shimmering waves. The largest ship at the center resembled a jagged mountain floating effortlessly against the backdrop of the cosmos. Smaller vessels surrounded it, each one radiating a faint blue glow that pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. To anyone watching, they looked otherworldly because they were. Back on Earth, people noticed almost immediately. Phones buzzed with alerts as news outlets scrambled to report the sudden appearance of unidentified objects hovering over major cities worldwide. In New York, Tokyo, London, and countless others, crowds gathered outside, craning their necks upward. Some pointed excitedly while others shielded their eyes, unsure whether to feel awe or fear. Social media exploded with videos, photos, and wild speculation. Was this humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial life? Or was it something more ominous? In Chicago, Emily joined the throngs of people spilling into the streets. She brought her camera along, instinctively knowing this moment would become part of history. As she walked, she heard snippets of conversation around her. A man nearby muttered, "They're here for us," his voice tinged with paranoia. A young woman clutched her phone tightly, filming everything while whispering prayers under her breath. Children tugged at their parents' sleeves, asking questions no one could answer. Above them all, the ships remained still, casting long shadows over the cityscape. Their presence was both mesmerizing and unsettling for every person who marveled. At the sight, another wondered what these visitors wanted, and whether humanity was ready to face whatever came next, unbeknownst to the humans gazing upward. Those aboard the alien ships were equally intrigued. Inside the central vessel, Cale stood before a wide viewport, studying the bustling activity below. He was tall, even by Valith standards, his elongated limbs and pale skin making him stand out among his peers. His large, almond-shaped eyes scanned the scene with quiet intensity. Unlike many of his comrades, Cale didn't share the widespread belief that humans were insignificant, a notion deeply ingrained in Valith. Culture, to most of his kind, Earth's inhabitants were seen as little, more than primitive creatures stumbling through existence. The Valith prided themselves on their technological superiority, their logical minds, and their ability to solve problems without emotion clouding their judgment. Humans, with their wars, pollution, and chaotic societies, seemed like proof that emotions only led to destruction. And yet, as Cale watched the footage streaming in from Earth's surface, he couldn't help but notice something remarkable. The humans weren't panicking, at least. Not entirely. There was fear, confusion, and even anger. But there was also curiosity. People pointed cameras at the sky, documenting the event instead of running for cover. Others held hands, offering comfort to those beside them. Some knelt in prayer, seeking solace and faith. These actions puzzled Cale. Why would beings so seemingly fragile respond with such determination rather than despair? Commander Vorthon entered the observation deck, his imposing figure drawing immediate attention. Like all Valith leaders, he exuded authority, his sharp features and piercing gaze commanding respect. He glanced briefly at the viewport before. Turning to Cale, "What do you see?" he asked, his tone clipped and impatient. Cale hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I see resilience," he replied. "These humans, they're not reacting the way we expected." Worthen frowned, clearly unimpressed. Resilience is irrelevant when faced with superior power. Their emotions make them weak. We've seen enough evidence of that already. Cale nodded reluctantly, knowing better than to argue directly with his superior. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to humanity than met the eye. He turned back to the screen displaying real-time data from Earth's communications networks. Amid the chaos, One particular video caught his attention. It showed a woman speaking passionately into a microphone, addressing a crowd gathered in a park. Behind her, a banner read, "Together, we stand." Curious. Kale enlarged the image. The woman appeared determined, her voice steady despite the uncertainty surrounding her. She spoke of hope, unity, and the importance of staying calm in the face of the unknown. Though Kale didn't understand the language fully, the subtitles provided by the ship's translation system painted a clear picture. This human, whoever she was, believed in the strength of her species not because of their technology or weapons, but because of their shared humanity. As Kale watched, another clip popped up alongside the first. It was older, dated several years prior, but it resonated just as strongly. The same woman, Melanie, according to the metadata, was shown interviewing survivors of a natural disaster. One elderly man recounted how neighbors had come together to rebuild homes destroyed by flooding. Another woman described organizing food drives for families left without resources. Each story highlighted acts of kindness, cooperation, and perseverance. Kale leaned closer, captivated. These weren't the actions of a primitive species. They were signs of something deeper, something the Valeth often dismissed as unnecessary: compassion. Could it be possible that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their intellect or tools, but their ability to care for one another? Meanwhile, back on Earth, Emily continued filming. She moved through the crowd, capturing candid reactions from strangers. A boy no older than 10 grinned widely, holding a handmade sign that read, "Welcome to Earth." Nearby, a middle-aged man shook his head, muttering about government conspiracies. Emily smiled faintly, finding humor in the absurdity of it all. Despite the fear hanging thick in the air, there was also a sense of wonder, a collective realization that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Her thoughts drifted briefly to her own life. Growing up in a small town in Illinois, she'd always felt drawn to stories of overcoming adversity. Whether it was profiling local heroes or documenting global events, she sought to remind people of their capacity for greatness. Standing amidst the uncertainty of alien arrival, she felt that same drive urging her forward. Whatever happened next, she knew she had to document it for herself, for future generations, and perhaps even for the visitors themselves. Little did she know, someone or something was already paying close attention. Far above, Kale made a decision. Quietly, he accessed the ship's communication systems, isolating Emily's signal. He began downloading her videos, intrigued by the raw honesty they conveyed. If nothing else, he thought, they might provide valuable insight into the enigma that was humanity. What he didn't anticipate was how much those recordings would challenge everything he thought he knew about life beyond the stars. For now, though the night stretched on, filled with unanswered questions and endless possibilities, below humans looked to the skies with a mix of fear and hope. Above, the Valeth observed, their intentions unclear. And somewhere in between, a single documentary filmmaker unknowingly held the key to bridging two vastly different worlds. Document. Part 2 of the story, the morning after the arrival of the alien ships. Earth woke up to a world that felt both familiar and strange. The sun rose as it always did, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, but its light seemed dimmer, somehow overshadowed by the looming presence of the massive vessels above. In Chicago, Emily Carter sat at her kitchen table, sipping coffee while scrolling through the countless videos she had recorded the night before. Her apartment was quiet, save for the occasional hum of her camera charging on the counter. She replayed one clip in particular, a close-up of a young girl holding her mother's hand, staring up at the sky with wide, curious eyes. There was no fear in the child's expression, only wonder. We've reminded Emily of herself at that age, when the unknown wasn't something to dread, but something to explore. She smiled faintly, then paused. What would happen next? Would these visitors speak? Would they harm humanity? Or were they here simply to observe? As if on cue, her phone buzzed loudly on the table. A notification flashed across the screen. * global broadcast from alien fleet. Emily's heart skipped a beat.
Oh.
She grabbed her camera and rushed outside, joining the crowd already gathering in the streets. Above them, the largest ship emitted a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the air. Then a voice calm, measured, and devoid of emotion began speaking. "We are the Valeth," it said, the words translated into every major language on Earth. "We have come to observe and evaluate your species. Do not attempt to interfere with our operations." The message was short, cold, and final. When it ended, silence fell over the crowd. People exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Scenarios they'd seen in movies, while others speculated about what evaluate truly meant. Emily raised her camera, capturing the reactions around her. Fear, confusion, defiance, it was all there, written plainly on their faces. Back aboard the Valeth mothership, Cale stood in the observation chamber, watching the broadcast play out. Across Earth's surface, he had argued against using such an impersonal tone, suggesting instead that they try to establish a more open line of communication. But Commander Vorthen had dismissed his concerns, insisting that clarity and authority were paramount. "Humans respond to strength," Vorthen had said. "They will understand our intentions if we make them clear." Cale wasn't so sure. As he monitored the human reactions streaming in from various cities, he noticed something troubling. Many people appeared frightened or confused, others seemed defiant. In Paris, a group of artists projected colorful images onto buildings, welcoming the Valeth with messages of peace. In Tokyo, a musician played a haunting melody on the streets, drawing a crowd that swayed together in unison. Even in smaller towns, individuals found ways to express themselves through art, music, and simple acts of kindness. Cale zoomed in on a live feed from Chicago, where Emily was filming intently. He recognized her immediately, determined. Posture and steady gaze made her stand out among the chaos. She moved through the crowd, stopping occasionally to speak with strangers. One man, a firefighter named John Miller, recounted how his team had stayed up all night preparing for any emergency. Another woman, Rachel Brooks, a schoolteacher, described how her students had written letters addressed to the sky visitors, asking questions like, "Why are you here? And do you have families too?" Cale leaned closer to the screen, captivated by the sincerity in their voices. These humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving even under the shadow of uncertainty. Their actions defied everything the Valeth believed about weaker species. Emotions, which the Valeth viewed as liabilities, seemed to be driving these people toward connection rather than conflict. It was baffling and fascinating. Commander Vorthen entered the room, his sharp eyes scanning the monitors. "What are you doing?" he asked, his tone laced with suspicion. "Analyzing human behavior," Cale replied evenly. "There's more to them than we anticipated." Vorthen frowned, stepping closer to examine the footage. His gaze lingered on Emily, who was now interviewing a young boy clutching a toy spaceship. The child grinned widely, saying, "Maybe they're nice aliens." "This proves nothing," Vorthen snapped, turning away. "Their emotions make them unpredictable. Predictability is strength. Strength is survival." Cale clenched his jaw, but said nothing. He knew better than to challenge Vorthen directly, especially in front of the other crew members. Still, he couldn't let go of the nagging. Feeling that the commander was wrong? If anything, humanity's unpredictability might be their greatest asset. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Emily continued her work. She spent hours traveling across the city, documenting every aspect of life under the watchful eyes of the Valeth. By midday, she decided to visit a community center where volunteers were organizing supplies for those affected by the sudden disruption. Power outages and panic had left some neighborhoods struggling. People were coming together to help however they could. Inside the bustling center, Emily met Mike Dawson, a tech-savvy engineer who had set up a makeshift communication hub. Using scavenged equipment, he was able to boost weak signals and keep people connected to news updates. "We can't just sit around waiting for answers," Mike told her as she filmed him working. "If we want to survive this, we need to take care of each other." Emily nodded, struck by his pragmatism. She interviewed several volunteers, including a grandmother who baked cookies for the workers and a teenager who handed out bottled water to anyone in need. Each person had their own reason for helping, but the underlying theme was the same: solidarity. No matter how scared they were, they refused to give in to despair. That evening, Emily returned to her apartment, exhausted but inspired. She uploaded her footage to her computer, piecing together snippets of interviews and scenes from the day. As she worked, she realized she was crafting something bigger than just a documentary. This wasn't just about recording history, it was about showing humanity at its best, proving that even in the face of the unknown, people could find ways to hope and heal. Unbeknownst to her, Cale was watching.
Ow.
From the safety of the Veilith ship, he accessed her private files, downloading hours of raw footage. He marveled at the diversity of human experiences captured within them. There were moments of laughter, tears, anger, and joy, all woven together in a tapestry of resilience. One clip in particular caught his attention: a group of children playing soccer in a park, completely unfazed by the massive ship hovering overhead. To them, it was just another part of the scenery. Cale replayed the scene multiple times, trying to understand what drove these beings to carry on despite the odds. Was it courage, stubbornness, or something else entirely? It intrigued him deeply. For the first time, he began to question the Veilith's assumptions about inferiority and superiority. Perhaps strength wasn't measured solely by logic and technology. Maybe it also lay in the ability to adapt, to connect, and to endure. Later that night, Cale approached Commander Vorthen once again, this time armed with evidence. "I've analyzed their behavior extensively," he began, projecting selected clips onto a large screen. "These humans, they don't act like primitive creatures. They display remarkable ingenuity and cooperation. Look at this." He showed footage of the community center, highlighting the efforts of ordinary people working together. Then he played a clip of Emily speaking with John Miller, the firefighter, who emphasized the importance of staying calm and prepared. Finally, he displayed the image of the children playing soccer, their laughter echoing softly through the room. Vorthen watched silently, his expression unreadable. When the presentation ended, he turned to Cale. "And what do you propose we do with this information?" he asked, his voice icy. "I propose we reconsider our approach," Cale replied firmly. "If we dismiss them outright, we risk missing an opportunity to learn something valuable. Their emotional intelligence may hold insights we've overlooked." Vorthen stared at him for a long moment before shaking his head. "Emotions are distractions. They cloud judgment and lead to failure. We will proceed as planned." Frustrated but unwilling to push further, Cale retreated to his quarters. He opened a private channel, reviewing Emily's footage once more. Something about her persistence and passion resonated with him. She wasn't just documenting events. She was telling a story, one that challenged preconceived notions and celebrated the complexity of life. As the ship drifted silently above Earth, Cale found himself wondering what it would be like to walk among humans, to experience their world firsthand. He doubted he'd ever get the chance, but the thought lingered, planting seeds of doubt in his mind. What if the Veilith were wrong about humanity? What if their arrival wasn't just a test for Earth but for the Veilith as well? For now, though, the two species remained separated by vast differences in perspective. Below, humans carried on, adapting to their new reality with resilience and creativity. Above, the Veilith observed, their intentions still shrouded in mystery. And somewhere in between, a single filmmaker and a curious scientist continued to seek understanding, unaware of the role they would soon play in bridging the gap between worlds. Document. Part 3 of the story, the days following the Veilith's arrival, felt like a strange mix of normalcy and tension. Life on Earth continued, but everything seemed to carry an extra weight. People went to work, sent their kids to school, and ran errands, yet the massive ships hovering above reminded them that nothing was truly ordinary anymore. In Chicago, Emily Carter spent her time traveling across the city, capturing stories that reflected humanity's spirit. She believed that if she could show the aliens who humans really were, beyond the headlines of war and destruction, they might reconsider whatever plans they had. One morning, Emily decided to visit a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. It was a quiet area, filled with modest homes and tree-lined streets. Here, life moved at a slower pace, unaffected by the chaos in the downtown areas. As she walked, she noticed a group of children playing in a park, their laughter ringing out. Despite the looming presence of the alien ships, nearby, an elderly man sat on a bench, feeding pigeons with careful precision. Emily approached him, introducing herself and asking if she could film him for her project. The man, whose name was Harold Jenkins, smiled warmly and nodded. "Sure thing, young lady," he said. "But I don't think I'm all that interesting." "You'd be surprised," Emily replied, adjusting her camera.
Tell me what do...
"You think about all this?" Harold gestured toward the sky, where one of the smaller Valeth ships hovered silently. "Well, it's not every day you see something like that," he chuckled. "But honestly, I've seen a lot in my 80 years. Wars, disasters, miracles, you name it. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that people always find a way to keep going." His words struck a chord with Emily. She filmed him as he spoke, his weathered face lighting up with wisdom earned through decades of experience. When she finished, Harold handed her a small loaf of bread. "For the birds," he said with a wink. "Or maybe for yourself, if you get hungry." Grateful, Emily thanked him and moved on. Her next stop was a local fire station where John Miller worked. She had interviewed him briefly before, but now she wanted to dig deeper into his perspective. Inside the station, the atmosphere was calm yet alert. Firefighters milled about, cleaning equipment and sharing jokes, their camaraderie evident even in uncertain times. John greeted Emily with a firm handshake. "Back for more?" he asked with a grin. "Always," she replied. "I want to show the world how people like you are stepping up during all this." John led her to a corner of the station, where photos of past rescue missions lined the walls. He pointed to one picture showing a team pulling survivors from a collapsed building. "This job isn't just about putting out fires," he explained. "It's about being ready for anything. Whether it's a natural disaster or, well, whatever those things in the sky are planning, we'll be here to help." Emily filmed as he spoke, capturing the sincerity in his voice. His dedication to serving others, regardless of the circumstances, was inspiring. Before leaving, she asked if he thought humanity stood a chance against the Valeth. John paused, considering the question. "I don't know what they want," he admitted. "But I do know this. Humans have survived worse. We're tough, and we stick together when it counts. That's got to count for something." Later that afternoon, Emily visited Rachel Brooks at her school. The classroom was empty except for Rachel, who was organizing supplies donated by parents and community members. Boxes of food, water, and blankets lined the walls, ready to be distributed to families in need. "This is amazing," Emily said. Looking around, "How did you manage to gather so much so quickly?" Rachel shrugged modestly. "When people hear there's a way to help, they step up. Even the kids pitched in. Yesterday, they made cards to send to hospitals and shelters. Little things, you know, but they matter." Emily nodded, understanding completely. She set up her camera and began filming as Rachel unpacked boxes and arranged items neatly on shelves. The teacher's hands moved steadily, her focus unwavering. Every action carried purpose, quiet determination to make a difference no matter how small. As the sun began to set, Emily returned to her apartment, her mind buzzing with ideas. She uploaded the day's footage, piecing together scenes of Harold feeding pigeons, John talking about resilience, and Rachel organizing supplies. Each clip told a story of strength, kindness, and hope. Together, they painted a picture of humanity that defied the stereotypes often portrayed in media. Unbeknownst to Emily, Cale aboard the Valeth ship was watching closely. Using advanced technology, he intercepted her recordings and played them back in his private quarters. He watched Harold's gentle smile, listened to John's steady voice, and observed Rachel's tireless efforts. Each moment reinforced his growing belief that humanity was far more complex than the Valeth had assumed. That night, Cale ventured to the observation deck, where Commander Vorthon was reviewing data collected from Earth. "We need to rethink our strategy," Cale said. Without preamble, Vorthen raised an eyebrow. And why is that? Kale activated a holographic display, projecting Emily's footage onto the wall. Look at this, he urged. These humans. They're not acting like primitive creatures. They're adapting, cooperating, and finding ways to thrive even. Under pressure, Vorthen crossed his arms, studying the images skeptically. Adaptation is survival. Doesn't prove intelligence or worth. It proves more than that, Kale countered. Their emotions drive them to connect, to support. Each other? Isn't that a form of strength? Shouldn't we consider what they might teach us? Vorthen's expression hardened. Emotions are weaknesses. They lead to irrational decisions and conflict. We will not base our judgment on fleeting displays of sentimentality. Kale clenched his fists but forced himself to remain calm. Arguing further would only deepen Vorthen's resistance. Instead, he retreated to his quarters, replaying Emily's footage once more. There was something profoundly moving about the way humans embraced life, even in the face of uncertainty. Their laughter, their tears, their acts of kindness, all spoke to a depth of existence the Valeth had long dismissed. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Emily prepared for another day of filming. She knew her documentary wouldn't change the world overnight, but she hoped it would remind people of their shared humanity. As she packed her camera and notebook, she glanced out the window at the alien ships still hanging in the sky. For the first time since their arrival, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the Valeth would see the truth not just about humans, but about themselves. Far above, Kale stared at the planet below, his thoughts swirling. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing for certain: humanity deserved more than dismissal. Whether the rest of the Valeth agreed remained to be seen, but Kale was determined to ensure their voices were heard. Somewhere between Earth and the stars, a bridge of understanding was beginning to form, one story at a time. Document. Part 5 of the story, The Days That Followed. Emily's viral documentary brought a mix of emotions for her. On one hand, she felt a surge of pride knowing her work had resonated with so many people. Messages poured in from all over the world, emails, comments, and even handwritten letters thanking her for reminding humanity of its strength. On the other hand, she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Valeth ships still loomed above Earth, their intentions unclear. What if her efforts weren't enough? What if they decided humanity wasn't worth understanding? Emily spent her mornings editing footage and responding to messages, but by afternoon, she found herself restless. She needed to do more, to reach further. That's when Mike Dawson called her again. His voice was urgent this time. "Emily, we've got a problem," he said without preamble. "I've been digging into the Valeth signals, and it looks like they're not just observing anymore. They're scanning classified military data, weapons systems, defense strategies, everything." Emily's stomach dropped. "Are you?" "Sure," positive Mike replied. "And here's the kicker. Some of their scans are targeting nuclear facilities. I don't think they're planning a friendly chat." Fear crept into Emily's chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. "What can we do? We need to warn people," Mike said. "But we have to be careful. If this gets out too quickly, it could cause panic. We need someone who can deliver the message clearly without causing chaos." Emily didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." Meanwhile, aboard the Valeth mothership, Kale was growing increasingly uneasy. He had watched Emily's documentary multiple times, each viewing deepening his admiration for humanity's resilience. But now, orders were coming down from Commander Vorthen that chilled him to the core. The Valeth had uncovered evidence of humanity's destructive potential, advanced weaponry capable of mass devastation. To Vorthen, this confirmed everything he believed about humans. They were dangerous, unpredictable, and unworthy of trust. Their capacity for destruction outweighs any perceived strengths. Vorthen declared during a meeting with the senior crew, "We cannot risk allowing them to develop further. Preparations for neutralization will begin immediately." Neutralization. The word echoed in Kale's mind, heavy with implications. He wanted to argue, to present the evidence he'd gathered about humanity's kindness and cooperation, but he knew it would fall on deaf ears. Vorthen's decision was final. The Valeth fleet would prepare for a preemptive strike, eliminating the threat before it could escalate. Cale retreated to his quarters, his thoughts racing. He replayed Emily's documentary once more, focusing on scenes of children laughing, families helping strangers, and artists creating beauty out of uncertainty. These moments contradicted everything Vorthen claimed about humanity. How could a species capable of such compassion also be deemed irredeemable? Then an idea struck him, a risky, desperate plan. Using encrypted channels, Cale accessed Earth's communication networks and located Emily's signal. He crafted a brief message, careful to make it vague enough to avoid detection by his own people. When the transmission was ready, he hesitated, unsure if he was doing the right thing. Finally, he pressed send. Back on Earth, Emily was reviewing footage when her phone buzzed loudly. Text notification appeared on the screen, written in broken English, *, danger near. Military secrets exposed. Alert others quietly.
Russ.
No one. *, her heart raced as she read the message again. It was unsigned, but something about it felt deliberate, like a warning meant specifically for her. She called Mike immediately. "Did you send me a message?" she asked. "No," Mike replied. "Why?" Emily explained what she'd received. "It's about the military stuff you told me. Someone knows." Mike was silent for a moment. "Do you think it came from them?" "It has to be," Emily said. "Who else would know?" Mike exhaled sharply. "This changes everything. If they're warning us, it means not all of them agree with whatever they're planning." "But why warn me?" Emily wondered aloud. "Because of your documentary," Mike said. "Whoever sent it must see value in what you're doing. Maybe they're trying to help." Emily nodded, though Mike couldn't see her. "All right, let's figure out what to do next." Over the next few hours, Emily and Mike worked together to decode the situation. Mike traced the signal back to the Valeth fleet, confirming their suspicions. Whoever had sent the message was taking a huge risk. Armed with this knowledge, Emily knew she had to act fast, but carefully. She couldn't broadcast the warning publicly without causing widespread panic. So she decided to use her network of contacts instead. She reached out to trusted friends and collaborators across the globe, sharing the message discreetly. Each person promised to spread the word quietly, ensuring it reached key individuals without drawing attention. Among those she contacted was John Miller, the firefighter. When she explained the situation, his expression turned grim. "We'll be ready," he assured her. "If things go south, we'll do what we can to protect people." Rachel Brooks also received the message. She organized a meeting with teachers and parents at her school, discussing emergency plans while keeping the details vague. "We need to stay calm and prepared," she told them. "No matter what happens, we'll look out for each other." As the warning spread, communities began preparing in subtle ways. Supplies were stockpiled, evacuation routes mapped, and communication networks tested. Though fear lingered beneath the surface, there was also a sense of determination. Humanity had faced challenges before, and it would face this one too. Cale monitored the situation from the Valeth ship, watching as humans quietly mobilized. He noticed increased activity in certain areas, people gathering resources, fortifying shelters, and organizing groups. It was exactly the kind of behavior Vorthen had predicted: defensive, calculated, and potentially aggressive. Yet Cale saw something else in their actions: cooperation. Even in the face of danger, humans were working together, prioritizing the safety of others over themselves. Commander Vorthen summoned Cale to the observation deck later that day. "Preparations are underway," Vorthen announced. "We move within 48 Earth hours." Cale struggled to keep his composure. "Commander, may I speak freely?" Vorthen gestured for him to continue. "What if we're wrong?" Cale asked. "What if humanity's capacity for destruction is matched by their capacity for creation? Their emotions drive them to connect, to build, to heal. Isn't that worth preserving?" Vorthen's gaze hardened. "Preservation requires control. Emotions lead to chaos. Chaos leads to destruction. We cannot afford to gamble with the future." Well, clenched his fists but held his tongue. Arguing further would only confirm his involvement in the warning message. Instead, he excused himself, retreating to his quarters to think. That night, Emily sat alone in her apartment, staring at her camera. She thought about the message she'd received and the responsibility now resting on her shoulders. If the Valith truly intended to attack, humanity's survival might depend on finding common ground and fast. Her documentary had shown the best of humanity, but now she realized it wasn't enough. She needed to show the Valith something more personal, something undeniable. She opened her laptop and began compiling new footage. This time, she focused on individual stories, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. A nurse comforting, a frightened child, a farmer sharing crops with neighbors, a musician playing a heartfelt melody on the streets. Each clip highlighted a different facet of humanity's spirit, proving that strength wasn't defined by weapons or technology, but by compassion and unity. When the montage was complete, Emily uploaded it to her website under a new title, Asterisk, A Message to Our Visitors. She included a note addressed directly to the Valith. Asterisk, to those watching from above, we may seem flawed, even dangerous. We are more than our mistakes. We are dreamers, builders, and healers. If you choose to see us not as a threat, but as fellow beings, we promise to meet you halfway. The choice is yours. Asterisk, she hit publish and sent the link to her network, asking them to share it widely. Within minutes, the video spread across social media platforms, reaching millions of viewers around the world. High above Earth, Cale intercepted the message almost instantly. He watched it in silence, his chest tightening with emotion. Raw honesty of Emily's words struck a chord deep within him. For the first time, he allowed himself to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity's voice would be heard. Far below, Emily gazed out her window at the alien ships hovering silently in the sky. She didn't know if her message would make a difference, but she refused to give up. Somewhere between Earth and the stars, a fragile bridge of understanding was beginning to form, one story, one moment, one connection at a time. Document. Part 6 of the story. The hours after Emily uploaded her new message to the Valith felt like an eternity. She sat by her laptop, refreshing the page repeatedly, hoping for some sign that her words had reached their intended audience. The video's view count climbed steadily, shared by people across the globe who believed in its message of peace and understanding. Yet high above Earth, the alien ships remained ominously still, their intentions unchanged, or so it seemed. In Chicago, life continued, though tensions simmered beneath the surface. People went about their routines, but there was a quiet unease in the air. Conversations were hushed, eyes darted toward the sky, and every sound carried a little more weight than usual. Emily tried to focus on her work, editing clips and gathering more stories, but her mind kept drifting back to the looming deadline. 48 hours. That's what Cale's warning had implied. 2 days until something catastrophic might happen. Meanwhile, aboard the Valith mothership, Cale watched humanity's response unfold with growing anxiety. Emily's latest video had spread rapidly, reaching not only Earth's population, but also his own crewmates. Some dismissed it as irrelevant propaganda, while others expressed mild curiosity. But Cale saw something deeper, a plea for connection, delivered with sincerity and courage. It wasn't just a message. It was an invitation. Commander Vorthon, however, remained unmoved. He convened another meeting with the senior staff, his tone sharp and unyielding. Their attempts at persuasion are futile, he declared. You reveal their weaknesses through such displays. Emotions cloud judgment, making them unfit for coexistence. Cale stood quietly in the corner, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He wanted to argue, to point out the strength and vulnerability, but he knew better than to challenge Vorthon directly. Instead, he focused on observing the reactions of his fellow crew members. To his surprise, a few exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions hinting at doubt. Perhaps Emily's message was beginning to take root, even among the rigid ranks of the Valith. Later that evening, Cale decided to take a risk. He accessed the ship's communication systems again, this time broadcasting Emily's video directly to all viewing stations aboard the fleet. The transmission played silently in observation decks, sleeping quarters, and command centers, forcing the Valeth to confront the humanity they had underestimated. Scenes of laughter, tears, and unity filled the screens, each moment challenging their preconceived notions. Among the crew, whispers began to circulate. One junior officer approached Kale cautiously. "Is this real?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Do humans truly act this way?" "Yes," Kale replied firmly. "This is who they are. Not perfect, but capable of incredible things." The officer hesitated before nodding slowly. "It makes me wonder. Are we certain about our course of action?" Kale didn't answer, simply walked away, knowing that seeds of doubt had been planted. Whether they would grow into meaningful change remained to be seen. Back on Earth, Emily's message sparked a wave of creativity and defiance. Communities came together in ways both small and profound. In parks, musicians performed impromptu concerts, their melodies carrying messages of hope. On city streets, artists painted murals depicting scenes of unity between humans and aliens. Even children joined in, crafting paper cranes and kites adorned with symbols of peace. Rachel Brooks organized a special assembly at her school, where students presented projects inspired by Emily's documentary. One group performed a skit about cooperation, while another displayed a large collage made from recycled materials. At the end of the event, Rachel addressed the crowd. "We may not know what happens next," she said, "but we can choose how we respond. Let's show the world and whoever is watching that kindness matters." John Miller and his fellow firefighters took a different approach. They set up mobile aid stations throughout the city, offering water, food, and medical supplies to anyone in need. If the worst happens, John told his team, "We'll be ready. But until then, let's remind everyone that we're stronger together." Emily traveled from place to place, filming these moments of resilience and creativity. Each scene added depth to her growing archive, proof that humanity refused to surrender to fear. She shared snippets online, encouraging others to contribute their own acts of defiance. The movement gained momentum, spreading far beyond Chicago, 2 cities and towns worldwide. One particularly powerful submission came from a rural farming community in Nebraska. A farmer named Ben Carter, no relation to Emily Zent. A video of himself and his neighbors planting a field of sunflowers in the shape of a peace sign. "We don't have much," Ben explained, "standing amidst the golden blooms, but we've got hope, and we're willing to share it." Emily included the clip in her next upload, titling it *Defying the Unknown. The video highlighted humanity's refusal to give in to despair, showcasing acts of bravery and compassion from every corner of the globe. By the time she finished editing, millions had already viewed it, leaving comments filled with gratitude and determination. High above Earth, Kale monitored the global response with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Humanity's refusal to cower in the face of uncertainty fascinated him. Their actions weren't driven by aggression or hostility, but by a desire to connect, to prove that they were worth understanding. It was a concept foreign to the Valeth, yet undeniably compelling. Commander Vorthon grew increasingly frustrated as reports of human defiance filtered in. "They should be preparing for conflict," he muttered during a private briefing. "Instead, they waste resources on frivolous gestures." "They're not wasting anything," Kale interjected, unable to stay silent any longer. "They're showing us who they are. Doesn't that deserve consideration?" Vorthon turned to glare at him. "Consideration won't protect us from their destructive potential. We must act decisively. If acting decisively means destroying something valuable," Kale shot back, his voice rising despite his efforts to remain calm. "What if humanity has lessons to teach us, lessons about connection, adaptability, and survival?" Vorthon's expression darkened. "Your fascination with these creatures clouds your judgment. If you cannot maintain objectivity, I will relieve you of duty." Kale clenched his jaw but held his ground. "I'm simply asking you to see them clearly. To see them as they truly are." For a long moment, Vorthon said nothing. Then, with a dismissive wave, he turned away. "Enough." Dismissed. As Kale left the chamber, he realized he had crossed a line. His loyalty to the mission and Perhaps even his safety was now in question, but he couldn't regret his words. For the first time, he felt aligned with his beliefs, no matter the cost. That night, Emily received another anonymous message. This one was shorter, but equally cryptic. Asterisk, your message spreads. Doubts rise. Time short. Trust earned. Asterisk, her hands trembled as she read the words. Whoever was sending these messages, likely Kale, was risking everything to help. She whispered a silent thank you, then turned her attention back to her camera. There was still work to do, still stories to tell. Across the planet, humanity continued to defy expectations. Art installations lit up city squares, volunteers distributed supplies to underserved communities, and families gathered around dinner tables, sharing dreams of a better future. Even in the shadow of uncertainty, they found ways to shine far above. The Valith fleet remained suspended, its massive ships casting long shadows over the earth below. Inside those ships, cracks were forming not in the vessels themselves, but in the rigid ideologies of their occupants. For the first time in centuries, the Valith were forced to confront the possibility that strength wasn't defined solely by logic and technology. Perhaps, just perhaps, it could also be found in the fragile bonds of emotion and connection, somewhere between Earth and the stars. Two vastly different worlds stood on the brink of understanding, or destruction. The outcome depended not on weapons or power, but on the courage to listen, to learn, and to trust. And as dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink, Emily raised her camera once more, determined to capture the story unfolding before her eyes.